Hi. Well, it's another beautiful day out there, as you can see. Today I want to talk about the past. Now, I know you think you know the past, and that's fine, okay? But what you don't know about the past is that it is still in control of you. Now, when you were a child, every word you heard from your parents' mouth was basically incorporated into who you became, your personality. Okay? And that stuff that they said to you is still in there. Okay? Whether you remember it or not, it's called conditioning. You have been conditioned by your parents and by the schools and so on and so forth. Now, there's nothing wrong with being conditioned if that's, what you want, go ahead and be conditioned. Okay, you have no choice in the matter. In addition to that, you were programmed. Those two things are what rules you, okay? And they come from the past, and they're still with you. The past is part of you because these things are what makes you tick, right? Anyway, so the other part of you that's from the past is the ego or the fake identity. That's all based on what your parents said to you, what they thought of you, what they thought of the schoolwork you did, what they thought of every single aspect of your life. And they told you that. Okay? And that's who you are now. Okay? Because that's the past. And you are the past. You are the past. Okay? Because that's the way it is. Okay? I mean, I would love for if this were not the case, but you have to wake up. So, how do you do that? Well, I think I've already gone into that on this channel, and I'll be happy to go into it again. You have to forget the past. You have to let go of the past. You have to let go of your personality because that's all past. You say, I don't want to live in the past. Well, you are living in the past. And the reason you're living in the past is because you've been conditioned and programmed. Okay? And this happened when you were a baby. Okay? And that's the way it is. It happened throughout your life. But the point is that every decision you make right now is made by the ego and your conditioning and your programming. And that's it. Now, what's the difference between conditioning and programming? Well, programming is what you would call your operating system. Isn't that crazy? And conditioning reinforces the programming. So, for instance, if you were programmed to not like vegetables because your dad shoved them down your throat or whatever, you were conditioned to not like them as well on top of it. Okay? You were conditioned to like McDonald's hamburgers. You were conditioned to like steak. Okay? And that locked in the programming of not liking vegetables. That's how it all works. So, in order to stay out of the past, to not be part of the past, to not be influenced by the past, you have to get rid of it by accepting what is. Now, I know that this is not easy. I know it's hard, okay? But one thing that could help is to know that this isn't you. This thing that your parents created between them and the schools and the government, it's not you. You are a soul. And that is, what you are. You are not all this stuff that got laid on top of that. Okay? When you're a baby and you look into a baby's eyes, you're staring into a soul. And you can tell that's what you're staring into because you get this feeling, don't you? I certainly do. But then laid on top of that beautiful, wonderful, fantastic soul, they put all this stuff, okay? And some of that's good because it teaches you languages and it helps you learn and so on and so forth. But in addition to all that, it also programs and conditions you. And that program and conditioning, which is from the past, stays with you. Okay? And you can ask yourself, why do I keep making the same bad decisions? It's because you're not making them. Now, remembering what happened, okay, can basically put you back in the past, okay? Because when you remember how things happen, you also remember the emotions that they happen with, okay? And then those emotions come back up. It's terrible, isn't it? Yeah, but that's what happens, okay? And so, before your programming starts up again, okay, with the experience of those emotions, and before the conditioning chimes in, okay. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's happening inside your mind, okay, but I assume. Anyway. So before that happens, there can be spaciousness, okay? Just being. And that is where you can get out of it, okay? You can drop the past. You can drop the condition. You can drop the programming, okay? Just when you start to feel those feelings again, when you start to think about the things that have, maybe hurt you in the past, or even the things that were mentally harming to you, and those old feelings start coming up, because that's what we do. We are thinking machines and feeling machines. And that is, what we do. I mean, it's hard to try and understand why you need to do this. I know, because who am I? You don't know who I am, that I'm telling you all this, but believe me, if you want to be free, you need to listen to what I'm saying, okay? I'm not saying that your life is bad or that you should do anything better or whatever. I'm saying if you want freedom, okay, then you need to accept what is. And what is that you were programmed and conditioned to be the way you are. And that stuff is from the past. You are living in the past. And you can't really appreciate the now, the things around you, when you're living in the past. I've talked about being in the future and imagining, all the wonderful things that are going to happen in the future and all that. Okay? But that's nothing compared to you being chained to the past. Like there's a chain around your ankle and you cannot leave the past, which is a wall. Okay? Because it's part of you. I know that's hard to understand too, but that's what it is. All that stuff, your brain is a recording machine. Okay? It's in there, whether you remember it or not. And therefore, it's with you. And the only way to get rid of it, the only way to stop it, is to accept that you are not a person. And that's it, pretty much. Accept that. Recognize that you are not your name. You're not what you do for a living. You're not how many years of high school you went through. You're not whether or not you went to college. None of that stuff is you. Okay? because you are a pure soul and there's nothing attached to that soul. Okay? There's something attached to all the personhood they gave you. Okay? And that stuff you're going to have to let go of. But the main thing here is to remember that you are not the past. You're living today. You're living in the now. If you continue to be in the past, then you're missing what life's really all about. And I understand if this is a difficult understanding to have. But it's time to change the path you're on and get on a new one. You know? And the new path is free of being the past. Okay? Now you could say, well, how do you know all this? The reason I know it is because I lived it. Okay? When I became awake, believe me, I saw all this stuff. It was like a freak moment of clarity. I don't know what you call it. But I saw it in my own life. I was lucky. But in a way, also, I wasn't lucky because who knows what suffering I went through before I became awake. So what I want you to do is wake up without all the suffering. Okay? Simple as that. And the way to do that is to accept who you are and accept what is. Every day is harder than the one before, isn't it? Sometimes feel that way. And that's because more shit, I hate to say that word, but that's what it is, gets piled up on top of your personality. Okay? And that stuff just hangs out on there. It becomes part of you again. More. Okay? Every experience you have is part of you now. Okay? And the new experiences that you're making now are the same way. But the way you're reacting, the way you're expecting, the way you see and feel stuff, okay, is, you know, it's just not good, okay, because it leads to your suffering. And yes, everyone has suffering. Are you lonely? Have you been unhappy? Have you been angry or irritated? That's all suffering. Anyway, the basic message today is that you don't want to live in the past, do you? No. Okay? But you are condemned to do so if you continue to not wake up. Okay? I don't want that to happen to you. I want you to have a good life. And the only way to have a good life is to awaken and shed all of this stuff. Okay? Your programming, your self, the person who you thought you were, because that's all you were, is someone you thought you were. That's not you. It's just what you thought. So, try to remember who you really are, okay? And accept that you are a soul, okay? And not a person. I know it's really hard to think about not being a person, but it's still who you are, okay? That personhood was thrust upon you. You didn't ask for it. You were a perfectly happy soul in a perfectly beautiful baby body, and then all this stuff just happened. It's not your fault. It's not your fault at all. Okay? And it's not your parents' fault because the same thing happened to them. They didn't know what was going on. They just went with the flow just like you did. So on and so forth. Into the past. So, it's been a pleasure. I love you all because you're me and I'm you. And I just want you to feel what I feel. Okay? And what I feel is freeness, love, joy, happiness. All right, well, it's been a pleasure, as I said, and have a great day.